On Christmas Eve, I found myself standing before the house where I grew up, dressed in secondhand clothing and clutching a deliberately worn handbag. Through the warm windows, I could see my family toasting Victoria's recent ascension to Chief Executive Officer, complete with her impressive $500,000 compensation package. My invitation hadn't been extended out of love, but rather to showcase my apparent shortcomings against the backdrop of my sister's remarkable success. Little did they realize that I controlled Phoenix Digital Solutions, a technology empire valued at $1.2 billion. Tonight would reveal just how malicious people can become when they perceive you as powerless and defeated. The door swung open before my knuckles could touch the wood, revealing my mother Margaret adorned in her finest holiday attire. Her expression carried that artificial warmth typically reserved for unwelcome acquaintances or troublesome visitors. "Elena, what a surprise that you actually came," she remarked, stepping backward without extending an embrace. "Everyone's gathered in the main room. Victoria just returned from her corporate headquarters." I shuffled across the threshold, adjusting my intentionally shabby outerwear. The residence emanated aromas of spiced cider and premium vintages, with seasonal decorations adorning the stairway railings. Numerous relatives occupied the space, their conversations creating a comfortable murmur that ceased abruptly upon my entrance. Well, our missing family member finally appears," my father Charles announced from his leather lounger, barely lifting his gaze from his electronic tablet. "We had begun to suspect you couldn't secure leave from that little bookshop." Cousin Sarah approached wearing her trademark expression of manufactured concern, the look she typically employed when discussing others' misfortunes. "Elena, darling, we've all been quite concerned about your situation, residing alone in that cramped studio while managing retail work at your stage of life." I responded with a submissive nod, executing my performance flawlessly. "The bookstore provides steady employment. I'm thankful to have reliable income." "Reliable income," Uncle Benjamin echoed with amusement, swirling his whiskey. "That's certainly one perspective. When I reached 32, I had already established my own financial consulting practice." Cousin Rachel emerged beside him, her real estate achievements evident in every piece of expensive jewelry adorning her person. "Regarding achievements, you simply must hear about Victoria's advancement. $500,000 annually. Can you fathom such success? And I believed my sales commissions were remarkable." Before I could formulate a response, the sharp click of heels against polished floors announced Victoria's grand entrance. She glided into the room wearing an impeccably tailored charcoal suit that likely exceeded most individuals' monthly earnings. Her diamond engagement ring captured the overhead lighting, casting brilliant reflections across the surrounding walls. "My apologies for the delay, everyone," Victoria proclaimed, accepting congratulatory kisses from the assembled relatives. "Emergency board conference extended longer than anticipated. You understand how it becomes when making decisions that impact hundreds of workers." She eventually noticed my presence near the entryway closet, still grasping my deteriorated purse. "Oh, Elena, I'm genuinely shocked you decided to attend. I realize family occasions aren't particularly appealing to you these days. I wouldn't consider missing the celebration of your accomplishments," I responded softly. "Congratulations on your executive position." Victoria's smile transformed into something more predatory. "Thank you. It's fascinating how achievement follows when you establish meaningful objectives and pursue them relentlessly. Marcus and I are already examining properties in the executive district." Her fiancé Marcus materialized from the kitchen area, wineglass in hand, and positioned himself beside Victoria's waist. "We're considering something featuring a home office and guest accommodations. Elena, you should witness the estates we've been touring. The most modest option spans 4,000 square feet." "That sounds absolutely wonderful," I murmured, observing how they positioned themselves to absorb details about Victoria's successes, while simultaneously avoiding prolonged interaction with me. Grandmother Dorothy shuffled over with her walking cane, shaking her head in visible disappointment. "Elena, sweetheart, what became of that brilliant young woman who captured the science competition during high school? You demonstrated such remarkable potential." "Sometimes existence takes unforeseen directions," I replied, maintaining my dejected facade. "Unforeseen directions," my mother repeated, beginning to organize appetizers on the central table. "That's certainly one method of describing it. Victoria, Share with everyone the details about your new corporate office. Those photographs you displayed were absolutely stunning. As Victoria embarked on an elaborate description of her corner office overlooking the city skyline, I observed how the catering personnel moved efficiently throughout the space. My parents scarcely acknowledged their existence, treating them as invisible fixtures. The servers maintained professional courtesy, though I detected subtle expressions of frustration when my family issued demanding requests without basic politeness. Conversation flowed around me like liquid around an obstacle. They discussed Victoria's corporate achievements, Marcus's partnership trajectory at his law firm, Rachel's latest property transactions, and Uncle Benjamin's retirement strategies. When someone occasionally directed an inquiry toward me, it carried the tone of obligatory courtesy rather than sincere interest. Elena manages that small bookstore in the downtown area, my mother explained to a family friend who inquired about my occupation. It's not particularly significant, but it maintains her schedule. Books are pleasant, the friend replied with the type of expression people employ when they cannot formulate encouraging words. Victoria positioned herself near the fireplace where my parents had arranged her corporate portraits and recent media coverage. I never anticipated reaching executive level at such a young age, but when opportunities present themselves, you must be prepared to respond. And some individuals are prepared, Uncle Benjamin added pointedly, while others continue searching for direction. The criticism targeted its intended mark, but I absorbed it without visible reaction. Instead, I studied my family's behavioral patterns, noting how they competed for Victoria's attention while collectively dismissing my existence. It resembled watching a wildlife documentary about hierarchical social structures. As the evening progressed, I overheard my parents conversing quietly in the kitchen while arranging dessert service. They failed to notice my position in the corridor, and their words carried clearly through the open entrance. "Are you certain about tonight's plan?" my father inquired. "It seems somewhat severe, even by our usual standards." "She requires a reality check," my mother responded firmly. Victoria's achievements highlight how significantly Elena has fallen behind. Perhaps witnessing the intervention materials will inspire her to implement some changes. The entire family has committed to this approach. Everyone agreed we cannot continue enabling her mediocrity indefinitely. Victoria prepared discussion points for each participant, and we have the employment applications ready. It's time for some direct honesty. My stomach contracted as I realized they had orchestrated something far more devastating than simple embarrassment. This wasn't merely a celebration of Victoria's success. It was a coordinated assault, designed to destroy whatever confidence they believed I possessed. They had no comprehension they were about to humiliate someone who employed over 3,000 individuals and had constructed a technological empire from nothing. I retreated to the main room where Victoria was discussing her company's upcoming expansion strategies. The family absorbed every word, asking sophisticated questions and offering enthusiastic support. The contrast with their treatment of me couldn't have been more pronounced. "Tomorrow will be even more thrilling," Victoria announced, checking her mobile device. "I'm finalizing a partnership that could transform everything." Dinner proceeded with ceremonial precision, each course accompanied by tributes to Victoria's accomplishments. I sat at the table's far end, picking at my food while listening to detailed analyses of her career progression and future possibilities. The conversation felt rehearsed, as though everyone had practiced their parts. After the main course, my father rose and tapped his wine glass with his utensil. "Before dessert service, we have several special presentations to make." Victoria beamed as Uncle Benjamin retrieved a gift container from the hall storage area. "First, we want to properly acknowledge our newest chief executive officer," he announced, presenting Victoria with an elegant wooden plaque engraved with her name and position. The family erupted in applause while Victoria posed for photographs with her award. Marcus captured numerous images, promising to frame the finest ones for their future home office. "And now," my mother said, her voice adopting a different tenor, "we have something for Elena as well." Cousin Sarah approached with a considerably larger bag, her expression radiating forced enthusiasm. "We understand you've been experiencing difficulties lately, sweetheart, so we assembled some items that might provide assistance." I accepted the container with shaking hands, performing my role as the grateful yet bewildered family disappointment. Inside, I discovered a collection of items that would have been offensive if they weren't so predictably typical. Financial planning guides, discount retailer gift certificates, and employment applications for entry-level positions at local establishments. We researched opportunities that might suit your qualifications, Rachel explained, extracting one of the applications. There's a receptionist position at my real estate agency, and Uncle Benjamin knows about an opening for a filing clerk at his practice. The crucial element is taking that initial step, my mother added. You cannot continue drifting through existence without direction. Victoria leaned forward, her voice adopting the condescending tone she probably employed with underperforming staff members. I've actually been considering this extensively, and I have a proposition. My new position includes authority to hire an executive assistant. The compensation wouldn't be substantial, perhaps $30,000 annually, but it would provide structure and meaning. The family murmured approval of this generous offer, praising Victoria's kindness toward her struggling sister. I clutched the gift bag, forcing moisture into my eyes to complete the performance. That's incredibly generous, I whispered. I'm speechless. Say yes, Uncle Benjamin encouraged. Victoria is offering you an opportunity to participate in something successful instead of hiding in that bookstore. Grandmother Dorothy nodded emphatically. In my era, family assisted family. Victoria is being very gracious considering. Considering what? I asked, though I suspected I already understood. Well, dear, Grandmother Dorothy continued, you haven't exactly brought honor to the family name. While Victoria was building her career, you were satisfied with minimum wage employment and that confined little apartment. It's time to accept guidance from people who understand better. Marcus cleared his throat and reclined in his chair. Actually, I might be able to provide assistance as well. My law firm handles networking events, and I could introduce you to some contacts. You'd need to improve your presentation, perhaps upgrade your wardrobe, but there might be opportunities for someone willing to begin at the bottom. His gaze lingered on me in a manner that made my skin crawl, and I realized his offer carried implications that had nothing to do with professional networking. The timing is perfect, Victoria continued, oblivious to her fiancé's inappropriate undertones. I begin my new role January 2nd, and I'll require an assistant immediately. You could provide your bookstore notice after the holidays. My father retrieved his phone and began typing. I'm documenting everyone's suggestions. We should develop an action plan with specific deadlines and accountability measures. Accountability is essential, Cousin Sarah agreed. We cannot allow emotions to override practical decisions. Elena needs structure, not sympathy. As they discussed my future as though I were a project requiring management, I noticed how their language had shifted. They spoke about me in third person despite my presence, reducing me to a problem requiring their collective solution. Has anyone considered what Elena actually desires? I asked quietly. The question seemed to surprise them, as though they hadn't expected me to participate in planning my own existence. What you want and what you need are different things, my mother replied firmly. Sometimes family must make difficult decisions for the greater good. The greater good, I repeated, testing the phrase. Victoria set down her wine glass and adopted her corporate executive posture. Look, I understand this feels overwhelming, but successful people surround themselves with other successful people. You've been isolated too long, making decisions based on limited perspective. Limited perspective, I echoed. Exactly, Uncle Benjamin interjected. You're thinking small because your world has become small. Working in retail, living alone, no meaningful social connections. It's not healthy. Rachel nodded sagely. When I started in real estate, I had to completely transform my mindset. Stop thinking like a consumer and start thinking like a business owner. You need that same kind of transformation. What kind of transformation? I asked. Accept reality, my father said bluntly. You're 32 years old with nothing to show for it. No career advancement, no significant relationships, no assets worth mentioning. Victoria is offering you a lifeline. The room fell silent as his words hung in the air. I looked around the table at faces that ranged from sympathetic to impatient, all unified in their certainty that they understood my life better than I did. There's one more thing, Victoria said, her voice taking on the tone of someone about to deliver particularly good news. Marcus and I have an announcement that makes this family gathering even more special. She stood and took Marcus's hand, her engagement ring catching the dining room light. We're expecting a baby. The child is due in August. The family exploded into congratulations and excited chatter about nursery plans and baby names. In the midst of the celebration, Victoria turned to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "This baby will inherit everything worthwhile in the family legacy," she announced. "Since you've chosen not to contribute to our family's success, maybe you could contribute by helping with childcare. It would give your life real purpose." The suggestion hung in the air like a challenge. They wanted me to become the family servant, grateful for the opportunity to orbit around Victoria's achievements while contributing my labor to support her growing empire. "I'd be honored to help with the baby," I said softly, maintaining my facade while internally marveling at their audacity. "Wonderful." My mother clapped her hands together. "See how much better things feel when we work together, Elena. You could move back home and help with the baby while working as Victoria's assistant. It's a complete solution." As they continued planning my diminished future, I realized this intervention wasn't about helping me succeed. It was about ensuring I accepted my place as the family failure, grateful for whatever scraps they chose to offer. They needed me to stay small so they could feel big. The evening was about to take an even more interesting turn. After the intervention presentations, the family migrated back to the living room for coffee and dessert. Victoria settled into the center seat, accepting continued congratulations on both her pregnancy and her professional achievements. The conversation naturally gravitated toward her new role and the company's expansion plans. "Tell us more about this CEO position," Uncle Benjamin requested, settling into his favorite chair with a fresh whiskey. "What kind of company is Apex Consulting exactly?" Victoria's eyes lit up with the fervor of someone passionate about their work. "We're a technology consulting firm specializing in data analytics and software implementation for large corporations. My promotion puts me in charge of our biggest growth initiative ever." "That sounds impressive," Rachel said. "But what does it actually mean in terms of revenue and market position?" "We're positioning ourselves to become a major player in the enterprise technology space," Victoria explained. "The consulting market is worth billions, and we're targeting Fortune 500 companies that need sophisticated tech solutions." Marcus pulled out his phone and began researching. "Victoria's being modest. Apex has grown 300% in the past 2 years. She's been instrumental in landing several major contracts." "Speaking of major contracts," Victoria said, unable to contain her excitement, "I'm about to close the biggest deal in company history. We're talking about a partnership that could double our annual revenue overnight." My father leaned forward with interest. "What kind of partnership generates that level of impact?" "A technology giant wants to use our services for a massive infrastructure overhaul," Victoria replied. "The contract is worth millions, and the client specifically requested me to handle the relationship." Cousin Sarah set down her coffee cup with a gentle clink. "Which company? Anyone we'd recognize?" Victoria paused dramatically, savoring the moment before her big reveal. "Phoenix Digital Solutions." The name hit the room like a small explosion. Everyone began talking at once, expressing amazement and asking questions. Even Grandmother Dorothy perked up in her chair. "Phoenix Digital Solutions," Uncle Benjamin repeated, immediately typing the name into his phone. "Good Lord, Victoria, their market valuation is over $1 billion. $1.2 billion, actually," Victoria corrected with obvious pride. "They're one of the most successful technology companies in the country, and they chose Apex as their exclusive consulting partner." Rachel whistled low. "I've read articles about Phoenix Digital. They're incredibly selective about business relationships. How did you manage to get their attention?" "Professional networking and reputation," Victoria explained. "Word gets around in the tech industry when you deliver exceptional results. Phoenix Digital's team reached out to us specifically because of projects I've managed." Marcus continued researching on his phone, reading aloud from various business publications. "Listen to this. Phoenix Digital Solutions, founded 8 years ago, specializes in proprietary software solutions for enterprise clients. Annual revenue exceeds $400 million. Headquarters in downtown Seattle with subsidiary offices nationwide." $400 million in annual revenue, my father repeated, clearly impressed. "Victoria, This partnership could transform your entire career trajectory. That's exactly what I'm thinking, Victoria agreed. Phoenix Digital's owner is famously private, but the executive team I've been working with treats me like a peer. They recognize talent when they see it. I sat quietly in my corner chair, sipping coffee and absorbing every word. They had no idea they were discussing my company, my employees, my revenue streams. The irony was almost overwhelming. "What do you know about Phoenix Digital's leadership?" Cousin Sarah asked. "These billion-dollar companies usually have fascinating origin stories." Marcus read from his screen. "The founder and primary owner remains anonymous, but business publications describe them as a visionary entrepreneur who built the company from nothing. Most articles focus on Phoenix Digital's innovative solutions and company culture rather than personal details about leadership. Anonymous ownership is smart," Uncle Benjamin observed. "Keeps the focus on business results rather than celebrity status." "I respect that approach." Victoria nodded emphatically. "Exactly. Phoenix Digital operates with incredible professionalism. Every interaction I've had with their team has been polished and strategic. They're the kind of company that makes Apex look good by association." "When do you finalize this partnership?" Rachel asked. "Tomorrow, actually," Victoria replied. "Christmas Day. The Phoenix Digital team wanted to meet before the new year, and I wasn't about to let holiday timing interfere with this opportunity." My mother frowned slightly. "Working on Christmas seems unusual. Are you sure this company has proper work-life balance?" "Mom, this is $1 billion deal," Victoria laughed. "I'd work on Christmas morning if they asked. Besides, the meeting is just a formality to sign documents and discuss implementation timelines." Marcus found another article and began reading. Phoenix Digital Solutions maintains subsidiary operations in over 40 states, including retail partnerships and community investment programs. The company has donated millions to literacy initiatives and educational technology programs. "Philanthropy is usually a good sign," Grandmother Dorothy commented. "Companies that give back to communities tend to be ethical business partners." "That's what impressed me most during our negotiations," Victoria said. Phoenix Digital's representatives asked detailed questions about Apex's community involvement and employee treatment. "They're not just interested in profits." Uncle Benjamin chuckled. "Smart business practice. Ethical partnerships reduce legal risks and create better long-term relationships. This Phoenix Digital owner clearly understands sustainable business principles." As they continued discussing Phoenix Digital's business practices and community reputation, I marveled at how close they came to understanding who they were really talking about. Every charitable initiative they praised, every business decision they admired, every innovative solution they celebrated, I had personally designed and implemented those programs. "The meeting location is a bit unusual, though," Victoria added, almost as an afterthought. "Instead of Phoenix Digital's main headquarters, they want to meet at some subsidiary address downtown. Probably a smaller office space they use for confidential negotiations." "What's the address?" my father asked. Victoria pulled out her phone and scrolled through emails. 485 Maple Avenue. It's listed as a Phoenix Digital subsidiary location, though I'm not sure what kind of operation they run there. My blood ran cold. 485 Maple Avenue was my bookstore's address. Phoenix Digital officially owned the building through a subsidiary corporation, but Victoria was about to walk into my workplace expecting to meet with mysterious executives. "Maple Avenue," Rachel mused. "That's downtown near the Arts District, isn't it? Interesting choice for a tech company meeting." "Tech companies often use unconventional spaces for creative brainstorming," Marcus offered. "Maybe it's their innovation lab or something similar." Victoria shrugged. "Whatever it is, I'll be there at 2 o'clock sharp tomorrow afternoon. This meeting represents everything I've worked toward in my career." As the family continued speculating about Phoenix Digital's business operations and my sister's bright future, I realized I was facing an impossible situation. In less than 24 hours, Victoria would arrive at my bookstore, expecting to meet with Phoenix Digital executives, completely unaware that her despised sister owned the company she was so desperate to impress. The evening had just become infinitely more complicated. The family's fascination with Phoenix Digital Solutions prompted an impromptu research session. Marcus connected his laptop to the television screen, and soon everyone was gathered around viewing the company website and news coverage. I watched from my peripheral position, as they dissected every public detail about my business empire. "Look at this employee satisfaction rating." Rachel pointed at the screen. 97% positive reviews on employment websites. Phoenix Digital must have incredible management. Uncle Benjamin adjusted his glasses to read the smaller text. Average employee tenure is 8 years, and they offer profit sharing, unlimited vacation, and comprehensive health care. This isn't just a successful company. It's a model employer. The founder clearly understands that investing in people creates better business outcomes, my father observed. Smart leadership philosophy. Victoria leaned forward, studying a press release about Phoenix Digital's latest software launch. "I've been wondering about their decision-making process. Every interaction I've had suggests someone with exceptional attention to detail and long-term strategic thinking." "What kind of interactions?" Cousin Sarah asked. "Contract negotiations were unusually thorough," Victoria explained. "Most companies focus on deliverables and timelines. But Phoenix Digital's team asked detailed questions about Apex's company culture, employee development programs, and community partnerships." Marcus scrolled to a new page showing Phoenix Digital's charitable giving history. "They've donated over $15 million to educational programs in the past 3 years. Look at this list of recipient organizations." As he read through the beneficiaries, my heart rate increased. Several organizations on the list received funding through programs I had personally designed, including the literacy initiative at my own bookstore. "The Riverside Literacy Project," Marcus read. "Downtown Seattle Food Bank, Pine Elementary School Technology Program, Oakwood Community Center After-School Program." "Those are all local organizations," my mother noted. "Phoenix Digital's owner must have strong ties to the Seattle area." Grandmother Dorothy squinted at the screen. "That's wonderful. Too many wealthy people forget about their own communities once they achieve success." "Here's an interesting article," Rachel said, taking control of the laptop. "Business Weekly published a profile last year speculating about Phoenix Digital's anonymous founder. Listen to this analysis." She began reading aloud. "Industry sources describe Phoenix Digital's leadership as methodical, innovative, and intensely private. The company's rapid growth suggests an entrepreneur with both technical expertise and exceptional business instincts. Several competitors have attempted to recruit Phoenix Digital's founder through intermediaries, but all approaches have been politely declined. Loyalty is rare in the tech industry," Uncle Benjamin commented. "Most successful entrepreneurs jump between ventures or sell to larger corporations. Phoenix Digital's founder seems committed to building something lasting." Victoria retrieved her own phone and pulled up Phoenix Digital's LinkedIn profile. Their company posts focus on employee achievements and community impact rather than self-promotion, very different from most corporate social media strategies. "What about photos of leadership?" my father asked. "Most companies showcase their executive team." Marcus navigated to Phoenix Digital's About page, which featured photos of department heads and senior managers, but conspicuously avoided any images of the primary owner. Just staff profiles for regional directors and project managers. The founder maintains complete anonymity. "Smart move," Rachel said. "Avoiding personal publicity allows focus on business results. Too many entrepreneurs become celebrities and lose sight of actual company performance." As they continued exploring Phoenix Digital's digital presence, I noticed how their research kept circling back to community involvement and employee treatment. Every article, review, and business profile emphasized the company's ethical practices and long-term thinking. "Here's something fascinating," Cousin Sarah announced, reading from a trade publication on her own phone. "Phoenix Digital has never laid off employees, even during economic downturns. They retrained people for new roles instead of cutting staff. That's almost unheard of in the technology sector," Marcus said. "Most companies prioritize quarterly earnings over workforce stability." Victoria looked thoughtful. "During our negotiations, Phoenix Digital's representatives asked how Apex handles employee development during difficult periods. I thought it was an unusual question, but now it makes sense. They're evaluating potential partners based on values alignment," my father concluded. "Phoenix Digital wants to work with companies that share their approach to business ethics." Uncle Benjamin nodded approvingly. "Victoria, you're partnering with exactly the right kind of organization." This relationship could define Apex's reputation for decades. As they continued their research, Marcus discovered a collection of photos from various charity events Phoenix Digital had sponsored. The images showed company representatives presenting large donation checks to local organizations, but the photos were carefully composed to avoid revealing the identity of senior leadership. "Look at this one," he said, pointing to a particularly blurry image from a literacy fundraiser. "There's someone in the background presenting a $50,000 check to the Riverside Library Foundation, but the lighting makes it impossible to see their face clearly." The family passed Marcus's phone around, each person studying the shadowy figure in the photograph. When the phone reached me, I recognized the image immediately. It was from last year's literacy gala, where I had personally delivered funding for expanded programming. "The woman looks young," Cousin Sarah observed when the phone returned to her. "Probably in her 30s. That's impressive leadership for someone so early in their career." Rachel took another look. The posture and clothing suggest someone comfortable with public speaking but not interested in personal attention. Very focused on the cause rather than photo opportunities. Victoria studied the image intently. "There's something familiar about the silhouette, but I can't place it. Maybe I've seen similar photos from other Phoenix Digital events." "Familiar how?" my mother asked. "Just a general sense of recognition," Victoria replied with a shrug. "Probably nothing specific. Successful women in business often have similar professional presence." Uncle Benjamin laughed. "Once you're working directly with Phoenix Digital, you'll probably meet their leadership team eventually. This anonymous founder can't stay invisible forever." "Actually, I'm hoping tomorrow's meeting will provide more insight into company leadership," Victoria said. "Major partnerships usually involve senior executives, even if the founder remains private." Marcus closed his laptop and disconnected it from the television. "You're incredibly fortunate, Victoria. Phoenix Digital represents everything Apex aspires to become. This partnership is like getting mentored by industry legends." "That's exactly how I see it," Victoria agreed. "Working with Phoenix Digital will elevate Apex's reputation and open doors to opportunities we could never access independently." The family began discussing Victoria's career trajectory and the potential long-term benefits of the Phoenix Digital relationship. They speculated about expansion possibilities, increased revenue projections, and the professional networking opportunities that would inevitably follow. "This could be the beginning of something extraordinary," my mother said, beaming with pride. "Victoria, you've positioned yourself to learn from the best in the industry." As they continued celebrating Victoria's impending success, I sat quietly absorbing the irony of their enthusiasm. Tomorrow, Victoria would discover that her despised sister was the anonymous founder they had spent the evening researching and admiring. The woman they considered a failure had built exactly the kind of company they respected most. The revelation was going to shatter more than just Victoria's expectations. As the evening progressed into its final phase, the family's energy reached new heights of celebratory excitement. Victoria had become the undisputed center of attention, fielding questions about her future plans and accepting advice from relatives eager to contribute to her success story. "Let's toast properly," Uncle Benjamin announced, retrieving an expensive bottle of champagne from the kitchen. "This Phoenix Digital partnership deserves recognition with something better than wine." While he worked on opening the champagne, Victoria's phone buzzed with an incoming call. She glanced at the screen and immediately straightened in her chair. "It's Phoenix Digital," she announced to the room. "I need to take this privately." She stepped into the hallway, leaving the family to speculate about the purpose of the call. I strained to catch fragments of conversation, but Victoria spoke too quietly for clear eavesdropping. When she returned after 10 minutes, her expression mixed excitement with slight confusion. "Everything all right?" Marcus asked. "More than all right," Victoria replied, though her tone suggested some uncertainty. "That was Linda Martinez, Phoenix Digital's executive coordinator. She confirmed tomorrow's meeting and provided some additional details." "What kind of details?" my father inquired. Victoria consulted her phone notes. "The meeting location is definitely 485 Maple Avenue, but it's not exactly what I expected. According to Linda, the building houses multiple Phoenix Digital operations, including some kind of research facility and community outreach center." "Research facility," Rachel repeated. "That makes sense for a technology company. probably where they develop new software solutions. Linda also mentioned that Phoenix Digital's founder specifically requested to handle this meeting personally, Victoria continued. Apparently, Apex's proposal impressed them enough to warrant direct involvement from company leadership. The family erupted in excited congratulations, praising Victoria's achievement in attracting personal attention from such a successful entrepreneur. Uncle Benjamin finally managed to open the champagne and began pouring glasses for everyone. "This is unprecedented," Marcus said, accepting his glass. "Anonymous billionaires don't take personal meetings with potential partners. Victoria, you've accomplished something extraordinary. What else did Linda tell you?" Cousin Sarah asked. Victoria scrolled through her notes. "The meeting is scheduled for exactly 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon." Linda emphasized punctuality and mentioned that the founder appreciates direct communication and thorough preparation. "Sounds like someone who values professionalism," my mother observed. "You'll fit right in with their corporate culture." "There was one unusual request," Victoria added. Linda suggested I bring any family members who might be interested in learning about Phoenix Digital's community partnerships. She said the founder enjoys discussing local business relationships. Uncle Benjamin raised his eyebrows. Bringing family to a business meeting is unconventional, but if they're genuinely interested in community connections, it could demonstrate Apex's local roots. "Should we come?" Rachel asked eagerly. "I'd love to meet someone who built a billion-dollar company from scratch." Victoria considered the suggestion. Linda specifically mentioned that the founder values authentic relationships over formal business presentations. Having family support might actually strengthen our partnership proposal. "Where exactly is this meeting location?" my father asked. "We should coordinate transportation and arrival times." 485 Maple Avenue, Victoria repeated. "It's in the Arts District near that little bookstore where Elena works. Actually, that's probably convenient for you, Elena. You could introduce us to the neighborhood, and maybe even show us around before the meeting." My throat constricted as I realized the impossible situation developing. Victoria wanted me to guide the family to my own business for a meeting with myself. The irony was becoming almost unbearable. "I'd be happy to help with directions," I managed to say. "Perfect," Victoria smiled, the first genuinely warm expression she'd directed toward me all evening. "You could even open the bookstore early tomorrow and let us wait there until meeting time. It would be convenient, and show the Phoenix Digital team that Apex has strong local connections." Marcus pulled out his phone again. "I'm curious about this building. Let me see if I can find any additional information about Phoenix Digital's operations there." He searched for several minutes while the family continued toasting Victoria's success. When he looked up, his expression showed mild confusion. "This is interesting," he said. "The building registration lists Phoenix Digital Solutions as the primary owner, but public records show it operating as a bookstore and community center. Very unusual for a technology company. Maybe they're using retail operations as research facilities," Rachel suggested. "Some companies test new technologies in real-world environments before wider implementation." Victoria nodded thoughtfully. "That would explain why they're interested in community partnerships. Direct interaction with local businesses and customers provides valuable market research." "Elena," Uncle Benjamin said, turning toward me, "you work in that area. Have you noticed any unusual technology installations or research activities in nearby businesses?" I shook my head carefully. "The neighborhood is pretty traditional. Most businesses focus on arts, crafts, and local services. Nothing that seems particularly high-tech." "Well, tomorrow we'll get answers to all our questions," my mother said, raising her champagne glass. To Victoria's success, and the beginning of an exciting new chapter. The family toasted enthusiastically while I struggled with the growing complexity of my situation. In less than 18 hours, I would need to reveal my identity to people who had spent the evening treating me like a charity case, while simultaneously celebrating their respect for the company I had built. Victoria's phone buzzed again, this time with a text message. She read it quickly and smiled broadly. "Linda just confirmed that tomorrow's meeting will include a comprehensive tour of Phoenix Digital's local operations," she announced. "The founder wants to demonstrate their commitment to community investment and long-term business relationships." "A personal tour from a billionaire entrepreneur," Grandmother Dorothy marveled. "Victoria, This is turning into something much bigger than a simple business meeting. I know, Victoria replied, her excitement barely contained. Linda mentioned that the founder rarely takes time for extended discussions with potential partners. This represents a level of interest that could transform Apex's entire future. As the family continued celebrating and planning for tomorrow's extraordinary opportunity, I excused myself to the bathroom and finally allowed myself to process the surreal situation I had created. Tomorrow, I would reveal that the family failure they had just humiliated owned the company they respected most. The look on their faces would be worth every moment of tonight's performance. Christmas morning arrived gray and cold, with snow beginning to fall as my family gathered at my parents' house for breakfast before the Phoenix Digital meeting. Despite the holiday, conversation focused entirely on Victoria's afternoon appointment and the potential implications for her career. I barely slept last night, Victoria confessed, adjusting her carefully chosen navy suit. This meeting could change everything. You look perfect, my mother assured her. Professional but approachable. Exactly the impression you want to make on a potential business partner. Marcus straightened his tie and checked his watch. We should leave by 1:30 to ensure punctual arrival. First impressions matter enormously with successful entrepreneurs. The family had decided to attend the meeting as a show of support for Victoria, positioning themselves as evidence of Apex's strong local connections and family values. Everyone wore their finest clothing and carried notebooks for taking detailed observations about Phoenix Digital's operations. Elena, you're still planning to meet us at the bookstore? Uncle Benjamin asked. We'll need someone familiar with the neighborhood to help us navigate. I'll be there early to make sure everything is ready, I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady. At 1:15, I watched from my bookstore window as my family's cars pulled up outside. Victoria emerged first, followed by my parents, Marcus, Uncle Benjamin, Cousin Sarah, Rachel, and even Grandmother Dorothy, who had insisted on witnessing this historic moment despite her mobility challenges. I unlocked the front door and greeted them with the same meek demeanor I had maintained throughout the previous evening. Welcome to my workplace, I said quietly. The meeting location should be somewhere nearby. Victoria looked around the bookstore with polite interest, while the others examined the shelves and comfortable reading areas. This is charming, Elena. Very cozy and welcoming. Phoenix Digital probably chose this neighborhood because of its authentic community atmosphere. Where exactly are we supposed to meet these executives? My father asked, checking his phone for the time. According to the address Linda provided, it should be this exact building, Victoria replied, consulting her email. 485 Maple Avenue. But I don't see any obvious entrance to technology facilities. I took a deep breath, knowing the moment had arrived to begin my revelation. Actually, there might be something you need to see. I walked to the back corner of the bookstore and pressed a concealed button hidden behind a row of classic literature volumes. A section of the bookshelf swung inward, revealing a modern glass door leading to a sophisticated office space beyond. What is that? Rachel gasped. Executive offices, I replied simply, stepping through the hidden entrance. The family followed me into a sleek conference room furnished with cutting-edge technology, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, and walls displaying Phoenix Digital Solutions awards and certifications. A massive curved desk dominated the far end of the space, with multiple computer monitors showing real-time business analytics and market data. This is incredible, Marcus whispered, staring at the sophisticated setup. Phoenix Digital built executive facilities behind a bookstore facade. Brilliant security strategy. Victoria approached the desk area cautiously, as if entering sacred space. The attention to detail is extraordinary. This office probably cost more than most people's houses. I moved behind the executive desk and activated the main computer system. Multiple screens illuminated, displaying Phoenix Digital Solutions dashboards, financial reports, and operational summaries. The family gathered around, mesmerized by the scope and complexity of the data flowing across the monitors. Elena, we should probably wait outside, my mother said nervously. This is private corporate space, and we don't want to interfere with important business equipment. Actually, I said, settling into the leather executive chair, I think it's time we talked. Something in my tone made them all turn to look at me directly. For the first time in years, I had their complete attention. "I am the Phoenix Digital Solutions founder and CEO you've been researching and admiring," I announced calmly. "This is my company, my office, and my meeting with Victoria." The silence stretched for nearly 30 seconds as they processed my words. Victoria was the first to speak, her voice barely above a whisper. "That's impossible." I opened my laptop and displayed Phoenix Digital's incorporation documents, showing my name as founder and primary shareholder. Then I pulled up bank statements reflecting the company's assets and my personal wealth, followed by business licenses and regulatory filings dating back 8 years. "Elena Chen Morrison," I read from the legal documents. "Founder and CEO, Phoenix Digital Solutions. Personal net worth approximately $1.4 billion as of December 24, 2024. Uncle Benjamin collapsed into a nearby chair, staring at the evidence spread across the desk. "This has to be some kind of joke or misunderstanding." "No joke," I replied, accessing my executive calendar and showing months of scheduled meetings with Fortune 500 companies, technology industry leaders, and government officials. "I've been running Phoenix Digital Solutions since I was 24 years old." Victoria's face cycled through confusion, disbelief, and dawning horror as the implications became clear. "You've been lying to us for years." "I haven't lied about anything," I corrected. "I own the bookstore where I work, along with several other businesses. I've simply never corrected your assumptions about my success or financial situation." My father stared at the computer screens displaying real-time revenue streams and market analytics. "Why would you let us believe you were struggling financially?" "Because I wanted to see how you treated someone you perceived as having no money or social status," I explained. "Last night's intervention demonstrated exactly the kind of people you really are." Cousin Sarah found her voice. "But you acted so grateful for our help and suggestions." "I was curious to see how far you'd go with your condescending charity," I replied. The employment applications, the budget planning books, Victoria's offer to hire me as her minimum wage assistant. It was all quite revealing. Marcus pulled out his phone and began frantically Googling my name combined with Phoenix Digital Solutions. Within moments, he found business articles featuring my company and achievements, though most photos showed me from a distance or in groups where individual identification was difficult. "Here," he said, showing Victoria a blurry image from a technology conference. "This woman presenting the keynote speech on innovation leadership. It's definitely Elena." Victoria grabbed the phone and studied the photo, comparing it to me sitting behind the executive desk. The evidence was undeniable, but she continued shaking her head in denial. "This doesn't make sense," she insisted. "Successful entrepreneurs don't hide in bookstores pretending to be failures." "I wasn't pretending to be anything," I said. "You decided I was a failure and treated me accordingly. I simply didn't correct your assumptions." Rachel finally found her voice. "How long have you known about Apex's contract proposal?" "I've been personally reviewing your partnership application for 6 weeks," I admitted. "Your initial presentation was impressive, but I always investigate potential partners thoroughly, including their personal relationships and character." The family exchanged horrified glances as they realized the implications. Everything they had said and done in my presence had been observed and potentially evaluated by the very person Victoria was trying to impress. "You've been spying on us," Victoria accused. "I've been getting to know the sister who wants to partner with my company," I corrected. Character assessment is a crucial component of business relationship evaluation. Uncle Benjamin looked around the sophisticated office space with new understanding. All those questions Phoenix Digital's representatives asked about company culture and employee treatment, that was you evaluating Apex's values. "Exactly," I confirmed. "I don't partner with people who lack integrity or treat others poorly." Victoria's phone suddenly rang, and she answered automatically before realizing the caller ID showed Phoenix Digital Solutions. "Hello, Victoria. This is Linda Martinez from Phoenix Digital," came the familiar voice through the speaker. "I'm calling to let you know that our CEO has completed her evaluation of the Apex partnership proposal. Unfortunately, after reviewing all available information, she's decided to decline the contract." Victoria's face went white. "But why? I thought the meeting went well." The CEO was particularly concerned about character compatibility and Apex's approach to family relationships and employee development. Phoenix Digital Solutions prioritizes partners who demonstrate consistent respect for others, regardless of their perceived social or economic status. The phone call ended, leaving Victoria staring at her device in shock. Around the conference table, my family began to understand that their behavior had been documented and evaluated by the very person they had been trying to impress. "You destroyed my career," Victoria whispered. "You destroyed your own career," I replied firmly. "I simply observed how you treat people when you think they can't affect your success. Phoenix Digital Solutions doesn't work with companies that lack basic human decency." The silence in my office stretched uncomfortably as my family grappled with the complete reversal of everything they thought they understood about our relationships and my place in the world. Victoria remained frozen in her chair, staring at her phone as if Linda's call might somehow reverse itself. "I need to understand something," my father finally said, his voice hollow. "If you've been this successful for years, why didn't you tell us?" I leaned back in my executive chair, considering how to explain years of accumulated frustration and disappointment. "I tried, actually. Multiple times. Do you remember 3 years ago when I mentioned expanding my business operations? You assumed I meant adding a coffee bar to the bookstore. That was different," my mother protested weakly. "Was it? What about when I talked about my investment portfolio, and Uncle Benjamin laughed and said I probably had $50 in a savings account? Or when I mentioned traveling to technology conferences and Rachel assumed I was attending as some kind of vendor?" Cousin Sarah shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "We thought you were being optimistic about small business growth." "You thought I was delusional," I corrected. "Every time I shared good news or mentioned professional achievements, someone in this family found a way to diminish or dismiss what I was saying. Eventually, I stopped trying to share anything meaningful about my actual life." Marcus cleared his throat nervously. "But surely you could have been more direct about your success." "Like Victoria was direct about hers?" I asked pointedly. "She announced every promotion, every salary increase, every professional achievement. You celebrated each milestone with enthusiasm and pride. When I shared similar information, you treated it like fantasy or delusion." Uncle Benjamin looked around the sophisticated office space, finally beginning to grasp the magnitude of what he was seeing. "This represents years of work and enormous financial investment. You built all of this while we thought you were barely getting by. I built this while you actively discouraged me from sharing my achievements," I clarified. "There's a difference between privacy and being systematically ignored." Victoria suddenly looked up from her phone, her expression shifting from shock to anger. "You deliberately sabotaged my career out of some petty family resentment. I evaluated a business partnership based on character and integrity," I replied calmly. "The fact that you failed that evaluation reflects your choices, not mine." "What choices?" Victoria demanded. "I've worked incredibly hard to build my career. You worked hard to advance yourself while treating other people poorly," I said. "Last night, you offered me a minimum wage job as your personal assistant. You suggested I should be grateful for the opportunity to serve you. You announced that your baby would inherit everything worthwhile in the family because I hadn't contributed to your definition of success." The words hung in the air as Victoria realized how her statement sounded when repeated back to her. Around the table, other family members began shifting uncomfortably as they remembered their own contributions to the previous evening's intervention. "We were trying to help you," Grandmother Dorothy said quietly. "You were trying to make yourselves feel superior," I replied, though my tone remained gentle when addressing her. "Helping would involve asking what I needed or wanted. Instead, you decided what my problems were and imposed your solutions without consulting me." My father rubbed his temples, looking older than he had the night before. "What happens now? How do we move forward from this?" "That depends on whether you're capable of treating me with the same respect you showed Victoria when you believed she was successful," I said. "Last night proved that your family affection is conditional on perceived social status." Rachel found her voice again. "But we love you, Elena. We've always loved you. You love the idea of me fitting into your definition of acceptable family roles," I corrected. "You were perfectly willing to humiliate me publicly and plan my entire future without my input because you believed I was powerless to resist. Can you forgive us?" my mother asked, tears beginning to form in her eyes. I studied her face, looking for genuine remorse rather than simply regret at being caught in their cruelty. Forgiveness requires acknowledgement of what actually happened and commitment to different behavior going forward. What would that look like? Uncle Benjamin asked. It means treating people with dignity regardless of their job titles, bank account balances, or social status, I explained. It means recognizing that worth isn't determined by salary or professional achievements. Marcus had been unusually quiet since the revelation, but now he spoke up hesitantly. About those networking opportunities I mentioned last night. Were completely inappropriate, I finished. Your suggestions had nothing to do with professional development and everything to do with exploiting someone you perceived as vulnerable and grateful. His face reddened as he realized his behavior had been observed and evaluated by someone with the resources to hold him accountable. I apologize. That was wrong of me. Apologies are meaningful when they're followed by changed behavior, I replied. Victoria finally looked up from her phone, her anger beginning to transform into something approaching understanding. I don't know how to process this. Everything I thought I knew about our family dynamics was wrong. Not wrong, I corrected. Just incomplete. You knew the family dynamics perfectly well. You simply didn't realize that the sister you were treating poorly had the power to affect your professional aspirations. Will you reconsider the Apex partnership? She asked quietly. I considered the question carefully. Phoenix Digital Solutions partners with companies that demonstrate consistent ethical behavior and respect for others. If Apex can prove that commitment over time, future opportunities might be possible. Niam, how would we prove that? Start with how you treat your current employees, especially the ones in junior positions, I suggested. Then examine how you interact with service workers, vendors, and anyone else who can immediately benefit your career advancement. Cousin Sarah leaned forward. What about the rest of us? How do we rebuild relationships with you? The same way you build any healthy relationship, I replied. Through consistent, respectful behavior over time. Demonstrate that you value me as a person, rather than as someone who might be useful to your own goals. My father looked around the office again, taking in the evidence of success they had completely missed. We failed you as a family, completely and thoroughly. You failed to see me clearly, I agreed, but failure doesn't have to be permanent if you're willing to learn from it. Grandmother Dorothy struggled to stand with her cane, then slowly walked around the desk to where I sat. I'm ashamed of how we treated you last night. You deserved better from all of us, but especially from me. Her apology carried weight, because it came without excuses or attempts to minimize the harm they had caused. I stood and embraced her carefully, appreciating her willingness to acknowledge the truth without deflection. Thank you for saying that, I replied. It means more than you know. Over the next hour, we continued talking through years of accumulated misunderstandings and missed opportunities for genuine connection. Some family members, like Grandmother Dorothy and my father, seemed genuinely committed to rebuilding our relationships on healthier foundations. Others, particularly Rachel and Uncle Benjamin, appeared more concerned about potential financial opportunities than actual family reconciliation. Victoria sat quietly for most of the conversation, processing the complete upheaval of her worldview. Finally, she spoke up again. I need to apologize for more than just last night, she said slowly. I've spent years competing with you instead of supporting you. I thought your lack of obvious success made my achievements look better by comparison. Success isn't a zero-sum game, I replied. Your achievements don't become less meaningful because other people also succeed. I know that now, she said. But I didn't know it then, and I let that ignorance damage our relationship. As Christmas Day afternoon progressed, we began the difficult work of rebuilding family connections based on honesty rather than assumptions. Some relationships would recover more easily than others, but the conversation had established a foundation for authentic connection rather than the performative dynamics that had dominated our interactions for years. There's something else you should know, I said, as the family prepared to leave. The literacy programs and community investments you read about last night. They include funding for local educational initiatives, job training programs, and small business development grants. You've been helping the community anonymously, my mother realized. I've been investing in the place I call home, I corrected. Success means nothing if it doesn't contribute to something larger than personal achievement. Victoria looked thoughtful. That's why Phoenix Digital's representatives asked so many questions about community involvement during our negotiations. Exactly, I confirmed. I partner with organizations that share my commitment to lifting others up, rather than stepping on them to climb higher. As they gathered their coats and prepared to return to their Christmas celebrations, the family dynamics had shifted dramatically from the evening before. Instead of treating me as a charity case requiring their intervention, they now approached me with the kind of respect they had always shown Victoria's achievements. But more importantly, they had begun to understand that true success involves how you treat others when you believe they can't affect your life, not just how you perform when you're trying to impress someone powerful. Walking them to the door, I reflected on the strange satisfaction of watching people confront the consequences of their own character choices. Victoria had lost a professional opportunity not because I was vindictive, but because she had revealed values incompatible with ethical business partnership. The evening had taught me something valuable too, that I had more power than I realized to demand better treatment from people who claimed to love me. Setting boundaries and maintaining standards wasn't cruel. It was necessary for healthy relationships. As I locked the bookstore and returned to my office, I felt lighter than I had in years. The truth was finally visible, and whatever relationships survived this revelation would be built on solid foundations rather than false assumptions. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the opportunity to see themselves clearly and choose who they want to become next. Before you go, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who treated you differently based on your perceived success or status? How do you think people should handle situations where family members show their true character during difficult times? Please share your experiences in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video if you found Elena's story meaningful. Subscribe for more stories about family dynamics, personal growth, and finding your strength in challenging relationships. Share this with someone who might need to hear that their worth isn't determined by other people's opinions. Thank you for listening to Elena's journey, and I hope your holidays are filled with genuine love and respect from the people who matter most in your life.